It's time for Lefties Losing It. Let's see what happened when a lefty losing it decided to confront border czar Tom Homan. Mistake, big mistake. Sit back and enjoy this. You may need a cigarette afterwards.
Let's release them in the community. Wait 3 or 5 years.
Member.
Pardon me?
Are you an MS-13 member? It says so.
Hey, that's okay. That's okay. I got a question. No. I got a question for you. Why don't you come up here and hand me that picture? All right. You got morons like this all over the country. This guy wouldn't like the surface nation. This guy ain't got the balls to be an ICE officer. He hasn't got the balls to be a Border Patrol agent. This guy lives in his mother's basement. The only thing that surprises me, you don't have purple hair and a nose ring. Get out of here, you loser. And you're such a badass. Meet me off stage in 13 minutes and 50 seconds. I guarantee you he sits down to pee. Guaranteed.
Oh, superb. I just love him. I really do. Now that he's demolished that joker, perhaps Tom Homan could school this next clown who has put together a tutorial of sorts advising people to waste immigration and custom enforcement's time with prank calls and fake tip-offs. I'm pretty sure that's a crime.
So ICE has a tip line that's available on their website. It's listed right there. And you can call it 24/7 to report suspicious activity related to illegal immigration. If you manage to get an ICE officer on the phone, you can always just make up a 1 or 2 minute scenario of something that never happened that they can look into. However, if you get the voicemail, which is much more common, I recommend leaving a wet, juicy fart sound effect. They also have a hotline that you can text, and I figured out that you can send images to the number.
They always have those crazy eyes, don't they? And talking about crazy eyes, check out this lady.
I just thought of a way to combine my MAGA hating and my work in the ER. MAGA supporters are like people who hold on to fireworks too long. You love it until it hurts you. Kind of like, how you love it until you can't retire until the age of 70. So see it in the ER, folks, when your fingers get blown off. Oh, have a good day.
Gross, just gross. Now get ready for a Jasmine Crockett extravaganza. We've featured her before. She says a lot of dumb things. And then there's the whole accent switch up. She can go from prep school to ghetto like this. Kamala has nothing on her. But despite her habit of saying some really, really, truly stupid stuff, there is talk of her being the new bright star amongst the Democrats. Perhaps she could lead the Democratic Party into being electable again. Let's have a look at her here, flat out lying, saying that the left are not violent at all, and the men who wanted to assassinate Donald Trump are actually his supporters. That makes perfect sense if you're a moron.
Violence doesn't come from Democrats, just to be clear. I mean, obviously anyone can be a criminal, but it is MAGA. It's specifically MAGA faction. Like, I don't think traditional Republicans are getting engaged in all of this, but like, even when we look at, and they don't talk about the assassination attempts anymore that took place with Donald Trump, but these were Trump supporters, right?
Yep, lies, lies, lies. And of course, that's the sort of lying that the lunatics at MSNBC just love. Watch this embarrassing exchange between an MSNBC host and a teary Jasmine.
That was you and I 3 years ago. That was your first time on the Katie Phang Show. This is the second to the last episode of the show. Congresswoman, I wanted to thank you for always getting up and early and delivering it, but I also want to say thank you for your continuing support for democracy. It's definitely something that you have made your brand, and it's the integrity that you're bringing, and I'm grateful for you always. We'll miss you. Oh. You can't have me crying at the beginning of a show, Jasmine. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, you haven't seen the last of me. Thank you for being here and getting us started today. I always appreciate you. Thank you.
And here Jasmine Crockett has the nerve, the chutzpah, to call other people dumb. Apparently, if you don't vote for the radical Democrats, well, you're just uneducated. You don't know what you're doing.
That's most people voted the wrong way because they were uneducated. And that's not to call them dumb, but literally life sometimes is life. And you're trying to keep a roof over your head, keep food on the table, trying to make sure that your kids have what they need. And so you're not tuned in to the endless news cycle, or you don't know what the truth is. Y'all need to connect the dots.
And talking about chutzpah, here is Jasmine Crockett claiming that Joe Biden was cognitively sound. Nothing wrong with him. It's President Donald Trump's mental acuity that concerns her.
Do you have concerns about the president's health and his mental acuity?
No.
None whatsoever.
I had none. Now, granted, I didn't see Joe Biden every single day, but I did have an opportunity to interact with the president. I never had a concern. If there's anyone that I am concerned about their mental acuity, it is the current occupant.
Now to the man who wants to be US president, who wants to position himself as the sensible centrist Democrat, the sane choice among a sea of hard left radicals. The only problem is, well, he's the current governor of California, the state that has crystallised for so many Americans just why the modern left is broken. Here is Gavin Newsom. He's asked about the evil of transitioning an 8-year-old child, and he can't even bring himself to condemn that.
What about for your values? I mean, is 8 years old too young?
Yeah, I mean, look, I now that I have a 9-year-old, just became 9, come on, man, I get it. So those are legit. You know, it's interesting, just the issue of age. As someone that's been so focused on equality, broadly, LGBT rights, particularly gay marriage, the trans issue for me is also novel. It's over the last few years, I'm trying to understand as much as anyone else. Whole pronoun thing, trying to understand all of that. Well, you know, that was like the hell. I mean, all that stuff. I get it.
Joining me now is Sky News contributor Kosha Gator. Kosha, like so many who identify as centrist, he strikes me as someone who just lacks principles, lacks conviction. And on an issue like that, how can you not have a position? I'd almost have more respect for him if he was just pushing the gender line about you have to affirm people's gender identities, because at least you believe in something. He knows what transitioning an 8-year-old is wrong, but he just does not want to say that because there's going to be too many of his supporters who'll be upset with that.
Class, I think you nailed it. That in this day and age that we live in, centrist is like an obfuscation. You can't be a centrist on an issue like this. It's pretty binary, pretty black and white, pun intended. And he's going on Sean Ryan's podcast. He went on with Charlie Kirk.
Yes.
So he knows he's going to get asked this question. He's doing that to try and somewhat appeal to the center right of the country, even though he'll run back to California and totally own the positions there. But in this chair, he'll do something else. And you can see he used so many words, so many hand gestures, and that's all filler, because he was trying to buy time and obfuscate, because he knows the absurdity of what he's saying, and he was just trying to run out the clock there on that show and not admit it.
Yeah, forget about his words. Look at his actions. Look at the policies California has. It's got some of the most radical hard left policies when it comes to the transgender movement. And I think he just wants to get credit for going on Charlie Kirk or Sean Ryan's podcast, because it sets him apart from other Democrats who are too terrified to do that, or who say, you know, they're white supremacists or Nazis because they don't happen to be left-wing. Now, Gavin Newsom did find the courage to troll Vice President JD Vance by sharing this video, and he also posted a rather snarky comment telling JD Vance, I hope you enjoy your family time. The families you're tearing apart certainly won't. Vance did have this rather superb response. He simply posted back, "Had a great time. Thanks, Kosha." I've got to say, Vance is very good at this. He's, in fact, I think even better than Donald Trump at this political warfare. He loves to have a little bit of conflict with the lefties, and he normally prevails.
He certainly does. So disingenuous of Gavin Newsom again, because the Vances are not illegals. Like he's conflating the two, and everybody sees through it. And it's easy to show courage behind a tweet, making fun of the running, which, by the way, Vance was a former Marine. So I think,
exactly.
Regardless of what's in the video, like he can hold his own, I'm sure. And Vance is a very good communicator. He's different. I mean, I think Trump is the OG for sure in terms of his effectiveness as a communicator. But in many ways, Vance, he's younger. He's clear sometimes in certain ways, and he enjoys the adversarial aspect and going for the conflict, going for the jugular. But then he also sort of wraps it up in kind of a fun, jovial aspect to him. So he's got a lot of good qualities, I think, up his sleeve, and his star is rising.
And that whole video, and it did go viral. Every single lefty account seemed to be publishing it and mocking Vance. But I've got to say, I mean, what are they playing at? This is the left who mock toxic masculinity, who say it's a terrible thing, and they seem to be poking fun at him because his running style isn't masculine enough. It's a very confused message that they're sending out there.
It reminds me of during the campaign, they tried weird. Tim Walz was trying to brand JD Vance as weird, and it sort of boomeranged back on him. So I think something similar might happen with this. It's not going to stick.
Absolutely. And also, he was running to look after his kid. His kid was climbing some rocks, and he ran to assist his child. So that's very relatable, doing that yourself and not having the staff do it. Now, let's have a look at this. Some theatrics from fired State Department employees. The Trump administration has reduced the workforce there by around 1,300, a relatively small drop in the number of workers, and yet the media, Kosha, seem to give every sacked worker a microphone. Just earlier this month, Microsoft sacked 9,000 employees. I don't recall the media giving those people this sort of coverage. Why are these public servants being treated like this is something that never happens, someone actually being sacked?
So theatrical, as you say, and these probably were theater kids, a lot of them, who then go off and work in government. And there's this whole narrative. It really is about the theater, the big bad government and the Trump administration and the poor little honest worker trying to work for America. And they're trying to create this narrative around it. But the numbers, as you say, it's not even 0.5% of the total number of federal government employees, which is something like 2.8 million.
Exactly.
We're going to be lucky if we even get to single digits in firings, because they've been obstructed every step of the way from judicial activism and all the rest of it. Everybody knows the government is too big. Microsoft, great example, white collar. You could even go blue collar. And when coal miners were shut down or small businesses went out of business because of the COVID restrictions and everything else, they never shed a tear for those folks. But here suddenly it's tears and microphones in the streets.
And it's a threat to democracy. Like, everything is a threat to democracy for the left. Now, President Trump has suggested today that First Lady Melania has helped him with Russian President Vladimir Putin, helped remind him that Putin has continually backed out of his promise over a possible peace deal with Ukraine. Kosha, the president, explained that Melania pointed out Putin's false promises, where he's made certain assurances in these phone calls, and then he goes and bombs another Ukrainian site.
I think the Melania reveal was interesting, just as a side note, because she's such an enigma. She's very famously private. And
she is an enigma, isn't she?
Is.
It's part of her charm.
It really is. And so getting these little glimpses of their dinner table conversation about Vladimir Putin was interesting. On the topic itself, I think it just reveals, Trump really is a consummate pragmatist, realist deal maker. It's not that he's a puppet of Putin, as he's been called, or that he even hates Zelensky. He certainly is not fond of Zelensky. And going into this, I think he was probably more favorably inclined to Putin. But as this drags on, as Putin also continues to strike, his own soldiers are dying, Russian soldiers, so many, hundreds of thousands of them, in addition to, of course, civilians and Ukrainians. He's not happy with it, Trump. This is sort of a distraction for him, I think, from what he wanted to do with the domestic agenda. And he's one of the only people in the world who can maybe move the needle here in some way. And I think he's just expressing that frustration.
Well, this is really a blight on his second term, isn't it? He's got so much of what he wanted to do done so quickly, from the border to fantastic economic news domestically. He's getting his tariffs in place and getting the revenue there. But he promised to do something about this war and do it quickly, and so far he's failed to deliver on that.
Yeah, the famous line that I can solve this in 24 hours. Now, that was just rhetoric on the campaign stump, and not everything is in control. But yes, it has dragged on longer than we all would like, and probably longer than he thought.
Absolutely. Now, the New York Times has asked an important question of its readers. It's asking, is it time to stop snubbing your right-wing family? I mean, really, what a broken publication with an even more broken readership, it seems. I don't know, Kosha. I think I'd rather be snubbed by these people. We've got enough crazy in our lives, and life is too short, I think. I mean, what a bizarre thing to be saying, but I think it reflects their readership, because so many of them can't cope with friends, family, work colleagues who may think differently from them.
That's so true, and such a childish tactic to snub somebody, not like, I'm going to influence you, or maybe let's just agree to disagree, but I'm going to snub you. And I looked into the author, David Litt. He's one of the former senior speechwriters for Obama.
Of course.
So I was rather surprised when I saw the level of depth or lack thereof in his analysis. And the funny thing, too, is so the tactic snubbing is childish, but also the issue that he really focused in on were the COVID vaccine mandates, which is not the hill to die on, because that has totally changed. It's not even a left or right thing. So many people view that very, very skeptically after everything that we were put through. And he was basically going after his sister's younger brother, who decided not to take the vaccine. And he used that as the central motif in his article about why you should snub your right-wing family member who maybe didn't want to take the vax.
I know, it is such a bizarre hill to die on. I still think it is a political issue. I think the hard left are still clinging on to those mandates as the right thing to do, even with everything we've learned since then. But wow, yeah, you forget about that. You forget about family members not being invited to Christmas dinners because of the COVID vaccine mandates. Incredible time. Kosha Gator, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
Joining me now is Newsweek's Senior Editor-at-Large and Article 3 Project Senior Counsel, Josh Hammer. Josh, we'll get to the Jeffrey Epstein fallout shortly, but let's start with Jasmine Crockett. The right think she is a gift, but many on the left see her as the future of the Democratic Party. Could this Texan be a unifying force that makes the Democrats electable again?
Rita, the only thing that Jasmine Crockett could possibly unify is large swaths of the United States to utterly despise her, to hold her in complete and just overwhelming contempt, and for the Democratic Party to doom itself into continued irrelevance for the next 5 to 10 years or so. I mean, this is someone who is completely and utterly unhinged, whose sentiments and talking points and policy positions and proposals, everything that she says on virtually every issue that I have ever heard her open her not particularly well-informed mouth is utterly at odds with the median American. I mean, if Democrats have any interest, Rita, if they have learned anything, if they have learned literally anything from the 2024 election, if they have learned that their base is actually quite out of touch with the median American, then Jasmine Crockett does not represent the future. She represents the ash heap of history. But the problem is that Jasmine Crockett is a natural progression of the post-2008, post-Barack Obama Democratic Party. Rita, you and I have discussed this. The demolition of Kamala Harris in the 2024 election really should be a very sober moment of introspection for Democrats, where they recognize that the moment that this went off the rails was actually, in hindsight, 2008. The entire Obama coalition of DEI, intersectionality, modern leftism has to be discarded. Jasmine Crockett is not the future unless Democrats are suicidal, which actually, frankly, they might be. And you know what? I kind of hope they actually are.
Well, we can only hope so, but it's incredible her rise in the last, 6 to 12 months. She's really come from nowhere to be so prominent and right up there with the likes of Bernie Sanders and AOC, other sort of far-left radicals who seem to be setting the agenda for the left at the moment. Now, Let's move on to the issue that will not go away, the Jeffrey Epstein saga. You're one of the conservative commentators who is urging Republicans not to lose faith in the Department of Justice after the decision to close the Epstein investigation. Let's hear now from some young conservatives on this issue. And this was recorded after President Trump threw his support behind Attorney General Pam Bondi.
I do not agree with the president.
I do not agree with.
I actually do agree with the president.
Unfortunately, on this one, I don't think I agree with the president.
I kind of side with Bongino and Patel in this situation.
I do not agree with the president. I think that Pam has brought a secretive energy to the administration and that it is not a good look for the president at all.
As much as I like the president, I do think that that is a little bit of mistrust put into the people.
I think there's a lot of instances where the president should just keep his mouth closed and not give out such opinions.
She had come out in the past and said that they had thousands of videos they were just waiting to release. And then all of a sudden now they're saying, yeah, there's nothing.
I don't believe that Pam Bondi is being particularly effective in terms of her leadership and governance when it comes to the Epstein files.
The women and children who were victims of this entire scandal absolutely deserve the justice.
But Josh, you argue that this has been the most conservative Department of Justice in our lifetime and that Trump is enjoying an incredible winning streak. But as you heard there from those young conservatives, they disagree with the president. They have lost faith in the AG. And doesn't this decision, Josh, to abandon the Epstein case tell Americans that the ruling elite remain untouchable, that even the most heinous criminals can be protected? It just seems like justice wasn't delivered here.
Well, Rita, those interviews were done at the Turning Point USA Student Action Summit in Tampa this past week, and I actually spoke myself. I did a debate on Sunday.
You were
with
there.
Charlie Kirk. I was there. So I saw this myself. I interacted with not necessarily these exact people, but with people at the conference, and the outcry is absolutely real. So I want to clarify what my stance is not. My stance is not that the Trump administration has done everything in the best possible way. They have not crossed every T. They have not dotted every I. In particular, it is very difficult. I would actually go so far as to say it is impossible to reconcile what Pam Bondi said on Fox News back in February with what she is now saying. Either the files were on her desk or they were not. Something is clearly amiss here, and it's been my contention that President Trump specifically himself should do one of those sit down in the Oval Office at the Resolute desk, look right into the camera and just talk straight to the American people for 15, 20 minutes, however long it takes, about what the heck happened here. So definitely I share a lot of these concerns. Rather, my contention, Rita, is the following. One, is that overall, again, I'm a lawyer. I follow the DOJ pretty closely. This has been a very conservative DOJ overall. This kerfuffle aside, the DOJ is assisting Tom Homan and Kristi Noem when it comes to the largest mass deportation operation in American history. They have won massive cases at the United States Supreme Court. Our Solicitor General John Sauer ending chemical castration, the sterilization of children when it comes to so-called gender-affirming care. Massive, massive legal wins there. The nationwide injunction, a lot of this coming directly from the Trump DOJ. I think that Donald Trump is really digging at his heels. For better or for worse. For better or for worse, the president is genuinely digging at his heels. And Rita, I have it from all my sources imaginable that Pam Bondi is going precisely nowhere. So given the fact that Donald Trump is MAGA, that this is his movement, I fully anticipate that his supporters will rally around him and this story will be forgotten 2-3 weeks from now. But I'm not saying that it's been handled in the best way possible. I want to be very clear that it's not necessarily my contention.
Now, we learned last week that the FBI is investigating former CIA Director John Brennan and former FBI Director James Comey for possible false statements to Congress. That's just for starters, I would suggest. And of course, incredibly, the left that weaponized the DOJ to persecute their political opponents, they're now playing the victim, Josh. Nina Jankowicz, you may remember her. She calls herself a expert on disinformation. She was going to be the Biden administration's disinformation czar before even they abandoned that plan for being too crazy. Well, Josh, Nina has a byline at MSNBC these days, and she's arguing that these investigations are politically motivated. She writes, political retribution is being normalised in America. How else can we interpret the news that the Department of Justice has placed former FBI Director James Comey and former CIA Director John Brennan under criminal investigation? Josh, what's your response to these claims from this self-styled disinformation expert that this is politically motivated and political persecutions or prosecutions are being normalised?
Rita, my response is very simple, which is that the disinformation operation, speaking of the so-called disinformation czar that never was, the actual disinformation operation that is currently being foisted on the American people through this dim-witted idiot who, thank goodness, never got the position that she was trying to get. The actual disinformation operation is to try to bamboozle and gaslight the American people into thinking that the political retribution against the opponents was anything other than what the Merrick Garland DOJ just did to Donald Trump and his whole movement, his whole MAGA basket of deplorables movement. What the Democrat lawfare complex has done, Rita, over the past few years, we're going to pay the price in this country for years and years, perhaps even decades to come. They have upended every rule. They have set us back hundreds, perhaps thousands of years. The rule of law exists in Western-style democracies. It is preserved in the U.S. Constitution to prevent exactly the sort of malfeasance of singling out your top political foe, who in this case happened to be a former and now we know future president of the United States, and trying to fabricate all sorts of ridiculous charges in multiple jurisdictions, trot him out for the mugshot there with Fonnie Willis in Fulton County, Georgia. We have seen no justice for these total malcontents whatsoever. Where is the justice for the Democrat lawfare complex? That is the retribution on political opponents, not this stupid stuff about James Comey and John Brennan, which, by the way, we actually have not gotten any justice for Russiagate to this day at all. All we have is Kevin Kleinsmith, who forged the FISA warrant on Michael Flynn and the others back in 2015. He got a slap on the wrist. He lost his law license for a little bit. That's it. No one has served a single day in jail there. So actually, a lot of us, Rita, want to see justice when it comes to the Russia collusion delusion. And that's been going on for a decade now. If this is what it's going to lead to, then I support it entirely.
Well, that was going to be my next question, because this just seems to be the tip of the iceberg. The Russian collusion hoax, which did so much damage, which was just based on utter nothingness. It was a political campaign that was used to spy on the Trump administration, that was used to really undermine Americans' faith in their democracy. There are so many Americans to this day who think Russia influenced or even bought that election. When are we going to see some consequences for people who were complicit in that betrayal? I mean, that was, I think, again, we've seen so many scandals in the last 10 years. The president being cognitively impaired would have been probably the top one. But the Russian collusion hoax and the way it undermined the American people's faith in democracy, that's got to be right up there.
Oh, it's right near the top of the very list. By the way, John Brennan, who was involved in the Russiagate hoax, at least the Trump DOJ is alleging it, and I certainly myself very much believe that. John Brennan, let's not forget, also affixed his name to the infamous Hunter Biden laptop letter from the 51 deep state spooks. This letter that came in essentially within hours after the New York Post having that article about Rudy Giuliani in Delaware with the laptop and Hunter Biden. We all know that story by now. By the way, Rita, a very fun, forgotten detail of that 51 deep state spook letter, the letter that had Clapper and Brennan and all the usual old Obama bros sign off and call it Russia disinformation. A very fun detail is that the then Biden-Harris campaign staffer, who was actually detailed to make that letter happen within 24 hours, was a foreign policy campaign staffer by the name of Antony Blinken, the man who would become the United States Secretary of State. So the pieces really do start to all come together here. I mean, this is a really nefarious operation there. Again, I'm hoping that we're going to get some justice. I don't want to mislead the audience, though. I would be pleasantly surprised if there is any substantive justice here. But at this point, Rita, very sadly, I have myself personally gotten accustomed to simply just not getting any kind of justice justice for some of this country, perhaps even this world's greatest scandals? What about the COVID-19 lockdowns? Are we going to get any accountability from all the people who have cost these children years of their lives and their most precious developmental years when it comes to learning and social skills? None of it. So I hate to be a pessimist and the bearer of bad news, but I myself have personally gotten accustomed to not getting justice. And when you set expectations low, Rita, any kind of justice then ends up being a big one.
Now, before you go, Josh, Donald Trump is being urged to sue Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez into bankruptcy after she posted some highly defamatory stuff about him on X. The Democrat Congresswoman tweeted this. She said, "Wow, who would have thought that electing a rapist would have complicated the release of the Epstein files?" Josh, is she really that dim that she doesn't understand that what she tweets can see her sued? She has no immunity on X, or does she think she's untouchable?
Well, let's not forget that people have accused Donald Trump of various forms of rape for many years now. In fact, we actually just had one of Donald Trump's many legal ordeals in New York City pertaining to this alleged rendezvous in a Bergdorf Goodman dressing room off Fifth Avenue in New York City back in the 1990s. And the judge in that case very clearly concluded that there was no rape. There was perhaps some sort of maybe kind of sort of sexual harassment or misdeed, but there was not anywhere remotely even close to rape. So there's actually been a legal ruling establishing this in very recently. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not just wrong. She is absolutely, according to a New York court, again, just in the past year and a half, 2 years, she is easily setting herself up for very legitimate defamation. By the way, given Donald Trump's litigious nature, he's nothing if not litigious. We know that about Donald Trump over many decades now. How stupid you have to be to put this out there. I mean, like, how dumb do you actually have to be? I mean, holding aside the truth for a second, like, why would you subject yourself to this? Like, the guy loves his lawyers. He loves sending cease and desist letters. He loves kind of lawyering up there. The guy lives and breathes the legal drama of the courtroom. Why would you do this? I mean, it frankly says more about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's utterly appalling stupidity, frankly, than anything else.
Well, yeah, he's had a couple of big wins recently too, hasn't he, Josh, with ABC and CBS. So, yeah, he'd probably have an appetite for launching some legal action. But I think she would enjoy the attention. She could play the victim again. The president's coming after me personally. He wants to bankrupt me. And it will just give her so much more airtime. Josh Haber, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Rita.